Today is the 12th day of Sivan, the 8th of June. We're holding in Mitzvah Sa'amanos, which means away from God, chapter 1. And we're on page Memvav Amud Aleph.
Chapter 1?
Yeah, we're still in, it's chapter 2. It's chapter 2, sorry. והנה, הדעת הוא הנקרא בזוהר מפתח הדקה לילשית. In the Zohar, in the Sifra de Tzniuta, it says that the sphere of Das, which is knowledge, is a key that opens 6, or that includes 6, but it opens six chambers. Which chambers? The 6 chambers of the heart. Loving kindness and might and beauty and victory and acknowledgement and foundation. Netzach Chagat Nehi. Dehainu shu pnimiyut hamidot. In other words, it is the inner aspect of all the measures of the heart. As we see that all the emotions and the active forces in a person, they follow the lead of one's consciousness, one's knowledge, the way one is holding by the world, one's mindset. כי כשאדם יודע ומרגיש את עצמו, הרי אנו רואים בחוש שלפי שהוא מרגיש את עצמו וחיותו מאוד, אזי מידותיו מתפעלים בהתפעלות רב לאהוב הטוב ולשנוא הרע יותר מכפי שהתפעל בעת שאינו מרגיש עצמו כל כך. כגון שטרוד באיזה עניין גדול. So he says here that what does it mean? This is where we see that knowledge, das, is like consciousness, and not just any consciousness; it's self-consciousness. So when a person is conscious of himself, the more he's conscious of himself, the more power he has in his measures of the heart, in his emotional faculties. He says when a person's very busy with something else, he doesn't have much attention for his emotions. So even
works by going through, doesn't it?
What?
It works by going through.
Yeah, of everyone.
You have to be distracted.
Right. You have to. So that's what you do with the child.
With work and with this.
Right. That's what you do with the child. Also, we want something very strongly, exactly. So you distract them.
Yes.
And it's as silly as look, there's a bird. Right. That's all you need.
A casino in Nevada.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is also true about pain that a person feels, or whatever it is. The moment that the person is distracted from themselves, they don't feel these as strongly. Yeah. So it turns out that they follow the consciousness. Wherever the consciousness is, that's where they go. נמצא שהמידות נגררים אחר הדעת. So they're following the consciousness, שהוא הרגשה כנה, which is what we call the feeling of self. ולכן נקרא מפתח לשישה מידות החרגת נהי, כמו המפתח שפותח. That's why they're called the key. That's why knowledge is called the key to these 6 emotions. חגת נהי, חסד גבוהה תפארת, נצח עד יסוד, כמו המפתח שפותח התפעלות המידה ומרואה וסגרה. Like a key that opens and unlocks or locks that particular faculty, that particular emotion of the heart. על ידי שמסיח דעתו וכו'. Or it can lock it off, it can close it off if it just distracts itself. ושורשו נמשך מאחוריים דיסוד עימה. Now, das itself, it comes out of what we call the backside of the foundation of the mother principle. אחוריים דיסוד עימה. כמו שנתבהר לעיל שלגבי השגת המהות, אינו אלא בחינת אחוריים בלבד, שהוא רק ידיעת המציאות. So what does this mean? The backside of the foundation of mother. So the foundation of mother, we know what that is. Foundation of mother is the womb, right? That's the womb. In the woman, the foundation is the womb. It's all the genital organs, but it's particularly the womb, where everything is born. So we say that emotions are born from the mother. They're born from understanding. Meaning, if a person doesn't have understanding, he can't give birth to new emotions. What do we mean? We mean to say that particularly when it comes to the holiness, to the side of holiness, to the divine soul, the way that we can beget, literally give birth to emotions that we don't have, is by, first of all, gaining a measure of understanding. Mother has to be impregnated. What is she impregnated by? What does it mean that she's impregnated, that her womb is full with something? That's when we have an understanding of Torah at a certain level. The more understanding we have, the more we're pregnant with Torah, as it were. So the Torah gives us the fetus from which to beget these emotions. So the emotions are like love of God and fear of God. Now this is a problem, right? Because we just said that love and fear of God, they're from they're controlled. They follow the consciousness, and the more there's self-consciousness, the more there's love and fear of God. That's what we say about love and fear of God, that they have an issue. It's called yesh mi she'ohev, yesh mi she'yareh. It comes out of yeshus. It comes out of feeling of self. It's a very problematic situation. That you want to love God, but the more to love God more, you have to be more conscious of yourself. It's like it's a problem, right? Because what would you ideally want? You'd want love to be forgetting yourself. But if you forget yourself, you don't love. That's the problem with emotions in general, whether they come from the divine soul or the animal soul. The divine soul doesn't solve the problem. The divine soul also, when you want to love God, there has to be a feeling of self. It can't be done without it.
You have to sublimate.
What?
You have to sublimate that
Oh,
feeling.
so is there such a thing as sublimating a feeling of self? So the answer is yes, there is.
There is.
There is. This is why we say in the end that the mother is 2/3 revealed and 1/3 is not revealed. The mother principle itself, understanding itself, is also divided into 3. We said a long time ago, everything divides into 3 in Kabbalah. So the mother principle also has Chabad, Chagat, Nehi. It also has an intellect, and emotions, and habits. So the intellect is concealed. Okay? The top third is concealed. The bottom 2/3 is revealed. So what we mean to say is that naturally, the emotions that are begotten from understanding will be felt very strongly because they're revealed. They're revealed even in the mother already. She already feels them. So all the more so when they come out. But the top third is concealed. It's covered. You can't, there's no feeling of self there. So that's why in Chabad there's a big deal about coming to a state of loving Hashem in what's called the emotions of the intellect.
I mean, that concealed.
And that's still concealed. The emotions of the intellect are still concealed. They're not a feeling of self, meaning they're not yet controlled, let's call it, by the consciousness of self as much. Okay, but that's a topic in and of itself. So what is the Achoraim? So here he says, so first of all, the Yesod of Ima is the womb. That's where they come out from. Now he says it's the Achoraim. Why is it Achoraim? Because שהוא רק ידיעת המציאות לבד. What does it mean? That this womb is the backside. It's a backside of the womb. It's not the front side of the womb. Meaning, if it was the front side of the womb, we'd say that the person came to a knowledge, to a recognition of God at the level that he knows his essence, and because of that, he loves him. He says, no, it's not like that. It's just that he recognizes that God exists, and he loves him because he recognizes his existence, but not because he understands his essence. So it's also, it's like the backside of the womb. Again, in the womb, I don't know if there's such a thing, but there is such a thing that a woman is pregnant, and she thinks she only has one child, and then after a few minutes she suddenly has a second one. So maybe the second one is the backside. She didn't know that she had it. Or there is such a thing that a woman doesn't even know that she's pregnant. Yeah. So there, okay. So, but in the Hasidic philosophy of this, it's very clear that the person doesn't know God's essence. He only understands God's existence. But that's enough to beget emotions. Because what do I understand? I understand, without understanding how, that in the same way that the soul is my life, God is the life of the world. I understand that, even though I don't understand what the soul is, and I don't understand what God is. So it's called Achoraim de Yesod de Ima. So it's called the backside of the womb, or the foundation of the mother. אם כן, כוח הידיעה של המציאות הוא בחינת אחוריים שלו לבד, שזה סוד החזה אלוקה, כמו שהתבאר לעיל. And that's what we called, that Job says, מבשרי החזה אלוקה, from my flesh I will know God. But it's not know God in the sense of knowing his essence, it's just knowing his existence. Okay? אמנם האמונה היא הנקראת התרה בספרים. So this is das. So Okay, so what does this mean? It just means, why did he tell us this whole thing? Because he wants to tell us that if you come to know God, you will also come to love and fear and so on. It follows. It follows through. It's not, the knowing here is not a passive, some kind of intellectual exercise. That's what he wants to say. This leads to knowing, leads to loving and fearing and embellishing, meaning beautifying God, and being victorious in God's ways, and acknowledging God, and being foundational in God's way. Everything that's connected to all these sfirot, it comes out of the knowledge. So the knowledge is necessary. You can't leave it as just faith. I mean, you can't just say that. That's the whole premise here. That you can't just leave it as, okay, I believe that God exists. No, you have to understand something about it. You have to know something about it. The knowledge that you'll have, that's what will give birth to the emotions, which are the mitzvos, the other commandments that follow from believing in God. So you can't leave it just at faith. You have to turn it into knowledge. And we said the knowledge is going to be, we're going to see this a little bit later, the first 5 principles of faith in Maimonides' 13 principles. That's going to be what it means to know God, to understand those 5 principles. If you understand those 5 principles, you know them, then you've come to know God, not just to believe God. So it has to translate from one to the other, otherwise it just remains something inert. It remains something that is like a passive knowledge, is some kind of, okay, it's an intellectual feat that I've succeeded in mastering something, but it doesn't translate into emotions. To translate into emotions, into habits, it has to go down into knowledge. So this we'll continue with tomorrow. Bezrat Hashem.